We're about to find out, as we've already got some very fast bans coming out from both teams.
Important to note as well, we are on 7-16. We will be for the entirety of the playoffs, and it is the LeBlanc and Rakan taken away by Misfits, and the Unicorns take away Elite and Kalista.
So you can already see a few target bans coming out from Misfits. The LeBlanc definitely directed towards Exileh, one of his comfort champions. And you can see, we're bringing up this graphic on our screen right now because comfort champions are something that Unicorns seem to fall back on when they're being pressured. They seem to have so much more success when they're able to get champions that they know they can perform well on. Look at the Warwick, the Vladimir, the Shen, the Twitch, Rakan. All these champions are just things that the Unicorns seem to always find success with, even if they're not right there in the meta.
And they did pick red side this time for those first couple of picks and for the counter pick at the end. Misfits, however, have first pick on the blue side, so they've got a lot of different options available to them here, Vedius.
Now remember that the Xayah is open, but we've seen the counter pick from the Unicorns of Love. They know that they're happy to bring the Poppy out if they see a Xayah on the opposite side. Caitlyn is also available, and with the recent nerfs that happened on 7.16, a lot of teams seem to be coming to the same conclusion that Caitlyn, she's not that strong anymore. Her wave clear, her threat during the laning phase is not that scary. So champions like Kalista, Xayah, Tristana all raise in priority. And with Rakan gone and Tristana available, expecting the Xayah to come out from Samux, Misfits already going straight for that Tristana.
Is something that we've seen Hans Summer play throughout the split. 100% win record on it, 2 out of 2 games. And it will be a Gragas lock for the Unicorns of Love. Expect that to go into the jungle, but it can be flexed.
It certainly can be. Top lane. Hell, we even saw it in the mid lane from Mickey. A little unlikely, but I agree with you. Jungle is where it's likely to go, and the comfort once again from Samux. So not the easiest matchup there for Samux, but I'm sure he's going to find some interesting combinations to go with it. Alistair, still a strong support that is available right now. I feel like if you're Misfits, you'd probably want to lock in the Maokai and an Alistair or a Braum for yourself.
It's interesting that you say that because we're seeing some Ardent Sensor supports rise in priority as well. The Janna, the Karma have been picked in a lot of different regions. So it's strange that we still have that priority towards melee support. It's going to be the Gnar and the Cassiopeia for Misfits Gaming, and Unicorns of Love might be looking towards their mid lane. It's going to be Talon for Exileh.
Now, Exileh did bring this out when they played up against Fnatic. He played it 2 times. He played it into Orianna and he played it into Caps' Cassio, and he solo killed Caps in both of those instances. We talked a lot about comfort. We talked about how Unicorns seem to perform better when they just play champions that are best for them. And Talon is certainly a champion that is good for Exileh, but it relies on early snowballing. It relies on having a good early to mid game, and you cannot slow down once you get that early lead.
Across the board, the Unicorns have comfort. Most played champions in both AD carry and in the jungle. If that Gragas gets put there, they are going to get rid of one of those Ardent Sensor supports that we talked about in the form of the Janna. And now Misfits Gaming have a few decisions to make around their second ban phase.
And the thing you have to remember, just backtracking to that point that you referenced earlier, yes, Ardent Sensor supports are very strong, but there are alternative options in terms of Trundle. Even Thresh, we've seen a few Ardent Sensors come out on him too. But the other key thing to remember is that supports like Janna and Karma and Lulu, they don't roam very much. They're not very good at impacting the rest of the map. And a player like Hylissang and IgNar, something that they used to be well known for, is roaming around the map and trying to find opportunities in the other lanes.
Something that Unicorns are well known for as well is that Poppy into Xayah matchup. Now, they banned out Janna themselves. Poppy got banned by Misfits Gaming, and Xayah is still on the cards here for either of these 2 teams.
And with the jungler already locked in, this could force Unicorns of Love into maybe being a little unorthodox with their Xayah pick unless they have another answer. We have seen that champions like Xayah and Gragas are still perfectly fine into the Xayah because they have the disengage with the Gragas ultimate. You have the Xayah ultimate as a bit of self-peel as well. But now we are also seeing a lot of supports being limited in terms of their pool. But as we were just mentioning, here's your alternative if you want one of those melee unsensor champions.
It will be the Trundle. Still Alistair available, still Braum as well for IgNar. Would like to see him on a more aggressive playmaking champion. Both of these supports are best when they can be making plays and roaming around the map.
I feel like Alistair would make a lot of sense, and as you rightly called there, Medic, with the bans coming out from Misfits, they wanted to take away the possible counters coming out to Xayah. So now you have this reliable front line that acts as a strong engage, and you have a good follow-up in the form of Gnar. Now we just want to see that follow-up continued. Alistair, Braum, both fantastic champions that synergize very nicely with the Tristana and fit this composition overall very well.
Misfits Gaming have a few options here, not as many as they would have had earlier on in the draft if they decided to pick support there. Unicorns of Love do still have that counter pick. The flex on the Gragas is still there. There's also a possible flex from the Trundle, and it's going to be Blitzcrank for Misfits. Good follow-up engage if you can land the hook.
So I think they were a little worried about picking a tanky support into the Trundle, because remember, his ulti does steal away a lot of those tanky stats. So instead, they're going to go for the Blitzcrank. They're going to go for that pick potential. Really strong against assassins like Talon because of the silence, because if he does get hooked and knocked up, he dies extremely quickly. Same for the Xayah. While she does have good self-peel, she doesn't have that many escapes, so if she ever gets caught once, she's going to be put in a lot of danger. It also gives you a good opportunity to try and set up for those roams, which is something that we've looked a lot at for IgNar about if he is still doing that. So I'm excited. We have great team fighting coming out from the side of Misfits. It will take a while to ramp up. They do have good scaling in the form of Cassio and Tristana. So in the early game, I don't think they need to do a huge amount. I don't think they need to try and force a lot of plays in the first portion of the game.
We'll have to see how Unicorns of Love are able to answer them. Vedius, as we get on into the game, I want to take you back on a magical journey. In the year 27 BC, the first Roman Emperor, Augustus, went on a journey to conquer the known world. His troops proclaimed him the Imperator, the victorious commander. Tonight, Misfits Gaming and the Unicorns of Love set out on their own journey for international glory. Tonight, we see which team is in command, which team is victorious, which team will be the Imperators. Tonight, we see the first war in the battle for the EU LCS Empire.
You got me hype, Medic. You got me hype. You got the crowd hype. Everyone's ready.
Maybe a slight bias in our crowd.
Maybe a little bias in our crowd.
I want to talk a little bit about the Unicorns of Love, though, Vedius, because you told me what Misfits do. You told me about their team fight and their engage and their follow-up, but what are the Unicorns of Love trying to do with this composition?
Well, naturally, they have a fair amount of team fight themselves. When you have a Rumble and a Xayah, you still have to look at their ability to team fight. But the important thing to remember is how much more reliant they are on the early game. Because when you have the Talon, he makes things a little difficult. He makes things a little awkward. Because assassins, they're in a weird place in terms of the meta. You really need to get them snowballing. You need to get them on some kind of a lead. And ideally, for a champion like Talon, you want him to be roaming around the map. Now, for someone like a Cassio in the early game, you're going to get pushed underneath your tower a lot. You're going to lose a lot of those early trades. And while Cassio did receive some nerfs on 7.16, it wasn't so substantial that she's now all of a sudden going to start losing out to a Talon. So we're going to have to keep track of Xerxe and how much pressure he can put down onto PowerOfEvil. Can he invest those resources into his mid laner? Because typically he doesn't. Usually he likes to either gank bot or try and set up top lane for success. And while he would have a few options in this matchup, I feel like it is very crucial for him, and maybe even Hylissang, to try and get Exile rolling in the early game.
You can see PowerOfEvil does respect Exile's Talon, has taken the exhaust in the lane. Not going for Ghost or Cleanse or Teleport. Exile's got the Ignite, as you would expect on an Assassin. Maxlore starts at his blue, Xerxe starts at his Razorbeaks with a little bit of help from his mid laner.
And with Maxlore playing this Zac, he's very likely just going to spend a lot of time farming in the early game. Hook lands in the bottom.
Hylissang's going to put the chomp down, but Handsammer sustains up through it, puts the explosive charge back onto Hylissang. And the Misfits Academy bottom lane seems to be winning out early on.
Good early trade from Handsammer and IgNar, utilizing the early power of Blitzcrank against the Trundle, who doesn't really have that same level of early strength. Trundle, he's always been criticized for his inability to really do anything during the laning phase, and when you're playing up against the Tristana, you have the jump. There's no real threat against the pillar that can come up very effective against low mobility champions, but not really going to struggle for the side of Misfits. And now because they've gotten an early level 2, they're just zoning the bottom lane of UOL away from the lane to try and build up a bit more of an advantage.
How important is this bottom lane advantage? Because both AD carries scale pretty well into the late game. Both supports have impact later on as well. Is it the case that whoever wins this lane wins the game?
Ooh, I don't know if it's quite that cut and dry. Largely because, as you rightly said, both scale very well. Ooh, we do see Maxlore there, and the hook.
Oh, the hook over the wall. Xerxe does still have the flash, but Maxlore is in the way. He flashes across the wall, and that's a summoner burnt by Misfits Gaming.
Good move up there from IgNar. They had the push down in the bottom lane. It was very swift from IgNar to quickly roam up through the river, provide a bit of support. They will get that early flash out from Xerxe now. It'll make it harder for him to punish PowerOfEvil in the mid lane. And bear in mind, he has been caught by Maxlore.
Stealing away some of the jungle. Xerxe is struggling, and once again we see the push from Misfits Gaming in the bottom lane, allowing IgNar to come up here and help Maxlore clear out some of the jungle.
And now that Hylissang has already pushed the wave into the tower, they can continue their pressure in the bot side of that jungle too. But this bot lane of UOL, they're the ones struggling. Not typically what we would expect. When you think about the two bottom lanes, especially when you think back to the H2K series, you're looking at Samux and Hylissang and you're thinking, this is quite a scary duo, especially when Hylissang is allowed to get on one of those playmakers. But he is on the Trundle today. He will not be able to flash in, charm you up, knock you up, allow for that very early first blood potential. Instead, they're going to have to be forced to play a little bit reserved. And this will give Hylissang and IgNar a few opportunities in that 2 versus 2.
We did want to see more roaming from IgNar coming into this game, and we wanted to see a secondary carry for the Misfits as well. PowerOfEvil has done a great job of being consistently good throughout all of their games, and we wondered whether Hylissang could step up. But the problem with Hylissang is he really seems to struggle when his team is behind. We compared him to other AD carries in losses and in wins, and you can see in losses, he really doesn't do much.
Yeah, you can see that when the team is winning, he's a pretty average AD carry. He does his job, he does what his team needs him to do, but in the losses, those stats, they're pretty low in terms of the rankings. And you might wonder, well, is that his team or is that Hylissang? And when you look back and you evaluate some of his play, you can see that often it's actually because of Hylissang in the 2v2, he's ending up getting caught out, they're losing those trades, he's in bad positions in team fights, and when they fall behind, Hylissang seems to be one of the people that doesn't seem to be one of the better performers. And you have to wonder, right, if there's more pressure on him. Does he feel like he needs to step up, and because of that, he's putting himself in these situations where he actually ends up getting punished for it? Or is it just because of the synergy down in the bottom lane? Remember back in the past, back in spring, when this team came to fruition, it was Kakao and IgNar that was really that superstar, that secondary carry to the Misfits lineup. It was PowerOfEvil and Kakao that was always getting those early advantages, but they might be able to get one in the bottom.
He's going to jump away with the flash, but Hylissang on the chase, one more auto, first blood, Misfits, and Samux has to run away.
And now we're already starting to see Misfits bottom lane be that secondary carry. We were just about to talk about how the difference between IgNar and Kakao and IgNar and Maxlore, and they've already started building this fantastic early lead down in the bottom lane. The thing about IgNar is usually he built all of his early game leads by roaming around the map, trying to work with his jungler to get those advantages, but he's just building him up here down in the 2 versus 2. Hylissang, he's playing a little bit too aggressively. He wants to try and use this pillar and the early aggression from Samux to set up an early play, but he doesn't respect the all-in potential. Hylissang gets another jump because he's able to proc the explosive charge, and they're able to get themselves first blood in the 2v2.
And throughout the regular season, we have been talking about how Maxlore hasn't really stepped up to the level that Kakao was in spring. You know, you can look at just the results. The game win-loss has been much worse this split, but we are now moving into the playoffs, and Misfits seem to have a way of working around Maxlore and helping him and facilitating him, which perhaps will set them up well coming into the semi-finals.
That's right. The key takeaway here is that we're in the playoffs now. You know, the regular season, you're supposed to use that as a learning opportunity. You want to get into the playoffs, and as a lot of teams say, we don't care who our opponents are because we're going to have to beat everyone if we want to make it to the final and we want to win. So this is the first opportunity for Misfits. This is their first glimpse of what it could be if they want to make it to Paris, if they want to make it to the finals rather than that 3rd place match last split.
Unicorns of Love have been in the playoffs many, many times, yet to get that golden crown, but looking for it once again this split. Let's have a quick evaluation of how the game stands, Vedius. 700 gold lead for Misfits. Xerxe has been able to sneak into the jungle of the Misfits here and is looking to steal away a buff, but Exileh comes across to help him out. Look onto Samux. Explosive charge comes out as well, but Hylissang's going to step forward. Hylissang's going deep. He wants it. He gets the kill. And won't be able to jump out because he hasn't got the mana, so has to use the heal. But once again, the Misfit bot lane is coming up big.
They really are. I was a little bit skeptical about the Blitzcrank pick, but it is working perfectly for Misfits right now. They're finding hook after hook, punishing the slight oversets from the Unicorns of Love. And the fact that they're building up this massive lead for this Tristana is huge for them coming into the mid and late game. Remember what we said, Medic? It's all about Misfits having a slow passive early game, and the onus is going to be on UOL to try and make something happen. Largely that revolves around setting up something in the mid, but if UOL are just going to lose this 2v2 in the bot, it's going to make it even harder for Exileh to find opportunities later on into the game.
And Summer hitting the level 6 marks just before Samux as well meant they could use the ult. Exileh tried to go deep in the mid lane. PowerOfEvil and Maxlore are on the collapse, as is IgNar. Flash hook. Exileh jumps away. There's a little bit of parkour from Exileh.
IgNar, he was just expecting a different direction to come out. Now we do see Xayah moving into the mid lane.
Here comes the equalizer. PoE no mana. IgNar's here as well with Hylissang. Vizicsacsi's going to get the damage down with the Flame Spitter, and that's first kill of the game for the Unicorns.
Good punish there from the Unicorns of Love. Vizicsacsi, he knows that IgNar has just used his flash. Hylissang also followed him up to the middle lane, and with a good pillar coming out from Hylissang to cut off the escape and force them onto the red carpet, it means that Unicorns of Love, they find a kill, and they're first onto the board.
And this is something we see a lot from Hylissang as well. After going back for the first time, he does like to look for these roams. It's actually helped out as well, because in picks and bans, we said Xerxe would want to look towards that mid lane to help Exileh get ahead in the lane. It's actually been Xayah and Hylissang who have come down to try and give Exileh that helping hand.
I think it's a good investment from the Unicorns of Love, but also it's one of those things where the Unicorns in the last 2 weeks are a good team that recognizes opportunities, and if they see a bunch of summoner spells are being used and they see a large collection of teams overstaying, they're very willing and ready to try and punish it. Xerxe, he wasn't in the vicinity, he couldn't help support the team, but it doesn't matter because Exileh, he gets this early kill, he's working towards the lethality build. And once he completes either the Ghost Blade or the Dusk Blade, it'll be a big spike for him and help him roam around the map where maybe he can look to try and set up some plays down in the bottom lane to shut down this Trist.
Vision advantage in the river currently in favor of Misfits. They've got a couple of wards across there, but Unicorns of Love have been able to put some deep wards down into the Misfits jungle.
Largely just covering the entrances. If they know where the Zac is, it becomes easier for Xerxe to be able to punish him. They will spot out that the red has gone. And they're looking for a bit of a roam. You can already see Exileh making his way down bot. They really want to try and shut down Hansama now that he's already a 2-0 lead. With the pickaxe completed too, he's well on his way to completing that Infinity Edge. Early game, still looking very bright for Misfits.
Top lane's looking bright as well for Vizicsacsi into that Gnar. Alphari's Gnar is something that we used to see out of him a lot, Vedius, especially in the UK scene, but hasn't quite looked up to his usual standard. Hylissang's going to get hooked in the bottom lane. Explosive charge. Maxlore across the wall, jumps onto Hilly, can't quite get it, but Hansama secures the kill, and that's all 3 kills for the Tristana. The teleport's going to join them up now as Xayah wants to get a piece of this action. So does Exileh. He's roamed down. Equalizer just about ticks onto the Misfits. Alphari jumps back. That's a kill. Looking for more as Maxlore knocks them up. He goes into the passive. Misfits could look for the re-engage here, but PowerOfEvil is not in the vicinity, and the Unicorns will get a 1-for-1 trade.
And this is the Unicorns once again reactively punishing the players that Misfits are trying to make. It ends up in a 1-for-1 trade overall. Both TPs ended up being used, but the crucial thing is that Exileh gets another kill on his Talon. Remember what we talked about earlier on, Medic? Trying to make sure that this Talon gets ahead in the early game, and while the UOL bottom lane has been falling behind, Exileh is making up for it. So you can see here another great hook from IgNar. Hylissang, he wasn't expecting a Zac to come out from the river. They had all the entrances warded except for that Tri-Brush. But then they see, IgNar, he still has no flash. Hansama's pretty low. A fantastic equalizer from the Unicorn side, set up nicely for Exileh to pick up another kill. Max was not able to land the stretching strikes. If he had, maybe they could have killed Exileh, but it does mean that UOL, so far, they're keeping fairly even with the rest of Misfits.
Only 600 gold between the two of them, and Misfits have actually initiated a lane swap for themselves here. They bring Hansama and IgNar up towards the top side. It's usually, we see this when a bot lane's behind or a top lane's behind for the switch. Here, it doesn't seem to be the case, Vedius.
Well, for Unicorns of Love,
Exileh can jump across the wall, but actually gets cancelled with the rocket punch. PowerOfEvil here as well, misses the petrifying gaze. Maxlore gets a very long stretching strike, and Hansama's going to jump. Does not invest the flash into going onto Exileh.
I think that was smart from Hansama. Doesn't want to overcommit, and they will force the mid laner back. This will give priority for Misfits over both the Rift Herald and that mid tower. They're not going to commit to either for the time being, though, because there's a big wave up top lane that Hansama wants to pick up. So Misfits, they don't really gain anything off of that. Unicorns of Love will be happy that nobody ended up losing their life. Exileh, good utilization of his wall jumps to escape from that dangerous scenario.
Exileh has got that Duskblade now as well, Vedius. That's when we said
Traktar.
That's good rolling.
My Welsh part, you know, it's an important cultural thing to be able to roll your R's.
I always thought it was more Spanish than Welsh.
I mean, that's very true, but it's also a big part of our... Don't woo that!
You never know. Seductive Vedius in his Welsh wiles. Now, I want to talk about this mid lane still. The Duskblade of Drakthar.
You tried. Yeah, what about the Duskblade?
Duskblade of Drakthar in the mid lane. Does this mean that Exileh now just wins this lane, Vedius?
Well, no, it doesn't mean that he straight up wins it. What it means is that he does a lot more burst damage to squishy targets. So when he roams, he's going to have way more threat. But in terms of the 1v1, it is very difficult for a Talon to be able to kill a Cassio, especially with the early Seeker's Arm Guard that she's rushed, and I absolutely love and recommend this to everyone at home. Getting that very early armor, extremely valuable, especially given that you can't build armor boots on a Cassio. It means that you can be in a bit of a dangerous situation. You should always try and get this item as early as you can. Really mitigates a lot of the burst that a Talon does have.
You can see the Unicorns setting up for that roam. We said it would be Xerxe and Exileh making the plays, but they have been spotted out on vision. They know they're in this bush. And that is one thing that Misfits were able to get out of that earlier pressure around the mid lane and top side of the map. They have good vision control down the river as Unicorns now sweep it out.
I love this early vision coming out from Misfits. Already, they're stocking up on control. Let's fight in the top lane.
And Samux does have the jump, the knockback onto Xerxe. Maxlore's on his way. IgNar's down to half. Maxlore get with the stretching strike. Pulls back Hylissang as well, and Hylissang's going to jump in. Exhausted. Maxlore says no. He jumps straight to the front of the fight, and Hylissang goes down. And Samux on a rampage.
Great response from Misfits. They're the ones that's able to punish UOL, who are just grouping up in the river. PowerOfEvil, he had priority in mid, so he could stop Exileh from being able to collapse into the fight. And while he does lose a lot of damage, or lose a lot of health rather, on that mid-tier 1, it will give another early lead to the favor of Misfits Gaming. 4-0 Tristana at 15 minutes. We wanted to see Hylissang become this secondary carry to PowerOfEvil, and right now, Misfits are setting him up to do just that.
You have to give credit to IgNar as well. We highlighted how he and Maxlore have not got on as well as Kakao and IgNar did, but he has been landing hook after hook. He's been setting up vision with Maxlore. Misfits look a team transformed coming into this series.
And this is what we said as well. Regular season, it's important for being able to qualify for playoffs and learning some of the key mistakes, but playoffs is where it all matters. You can forget about the losses, you can forget about the small instances that you don't want to remember during the regular season, as long as it all culminates into a strong performance here at the playoffs. And having a great early game like this for Misfits is going to be a big confidence booster too, because remember, the last time this team was in the quarterfinal, they reverse swept Splice. They were 2-0 down. They nearly didn't make it to that third place match. So being able to start off strong is definitely something that the Misfits would like to do. However, Unicorns Unicorns have this tendency to have a bad game 1 and then suddenly flip the switch throughout the rest of the series. So this is a best of 5. There's still a lot more games to come, and there's still a lot left of this game 1.
16 minutes in, there's a 1,000 gold lead for Misfits. Have a look down the item part here, Vedius. We've got Black Cleaver finished onto Alphari. We've got Rod of Ages actually just completed on PowerOfEvil. That's going to start stacking up. And the Infinity Edge on Hansama. Misfits have peaked at that 1 item spike already.
And it's the 2 items, the classic, Medic. The 2 item spike, something we casters, we love to say it. In the past, it was the Trini Force spike. Now it's all about the 2 item spike. For Tristana, it's the Eye Edge plus Static Shiv, the Lightning Swords. Right? I know Infinity Edge doesn't channel lightning, but it's got a flash that makes it look like it. And typically, you'd build an Ardent Sensor with that AD carry, but in the case of IgNar, he's not going to do that for the time being. Actually, he could very well do later. You can see, based on his mastery, I always forget the name of it.
Bond of Stone?
There you go. That's why you're the play-by-play. I can trust you.
It used to be called Stoneborn Pact. Actually, it might be called Stoneborn Pact now.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Sure
what does matter is that you can build Unsensor with it, because you're able to proc the healing and you're able to give your AD carry exactly what he needs, and that will turn him into a super AD carry. Much earlier in the game than he arguably should be.
Vision set up once again for Unicorns of Love in this river. As you can see, Misfits do have a couple of wards that Unicorns will be spotting out. There's a lot of priority on this Rift Herald here, Vedius. Trying to get and break that front line of the towers. Of course, no turret yet to fall, but Vizicsacsi wants to try and answer that in the bottom lane. Alphari struggling a bit in this lane, about 20 farm behind.
Yeah. This isn't typically what you'd expect from the Gnar versus the Rumble. Now, you have to remember the Rumble does have very strong trading power, can really get into the face, especially mini Gnar. Look, we'll go a little bit wide. But it does surprise me that he's getting pushed back so much. We need to move back down to the bottom. You can see Alphari just getting into the Mega Gnar.
Xerxe does have the equalizer to try and answer this. The Rubble does not connect. There's the equalizer, the Gnar away, the Wallop as well, but Xerxe is winning this trade. Alphari is about to go back into mini, so Xerxe will realize that he cannot continue to fight. But Alphari once again forced out by what many people think a superior top lane.
So, Alphari being pushed back quite a lot by Vizicsacsi in this 1 versus 1. Xerxe has been praised for a very long time as one of the best top laners we have here in Europe. He was our Spring Split MVP, and against H2K, he was able to solo kill Odoamne multiple times through the mistakes that he's made, and Vizicsacsi is able to do a similar thing here to Alphari. He could be, along with Exileh, one of the shining stars right now for the Unicorns of Love. That bottom lane fell into a pretty big deficit early on, but thanks to the performance of Xerxe, he's keeping UOL afloat with Misfits.
We said in Picks and Bans as well that Unicorns of Love needed to try and get ahead in the early game. They have got their assassin ahead, but the rest of the team is still lagging behind a little bit, especially that bot lane.
But it's not too bad, because you have to remember that look at all the magic resistance that's currently being built from the side of Misfits. You have double Spectre's Cowl coming out from both Maxlore and Alphari, because they're afraid of the damage that Xerxe and Xerxe is able to put out in the mid-game portion. But the reality is, Exileh, he's already got his Duskblade. He's working towards the Ghostblade too. He's going to have a lot of lethality, and if he moves off into a slide lane, he's going to have a lot of 1v1 threat. Now, PowerOfEvil, sure, he's stacking up a lot of armor. It's not going to be his priority, but he's going to go for the... He's already grabbed the early Seeker's Arm Guard, so he should be able to hold him in the 1v1, but it's so much easier for Exileh to push up top, have PowerOfEvil go answer, and then roam down with his team and try and force a play. So that's what I'm looking for with the Unicorns of Love. I want to see Exileh now move off to a side lane, send both Samux and Hylissang down to the mid, allow Exileh to be this pressure threat that can just be this roaming death assassin, but that will require as well good vision control, which right now UOL is setting up for.
Hook from IgNar does not quite connect. He's actually gone for the Get Swifty build, Boots of Swiftness and the Talisman of Ascension for as much movement speed as you can get on the Blitzcrank. Would not be surprised to see a Righteous Glory there as well to try and speed him up. Baron has spawned, but neither of these teams are going to want that yet, Vedius. With only 100, or perhaps 200 gold between the two of them, it is a very even match.
But it's UOL that still have the pressure. Even though they Misfits have a 4-0 AD carry that's already completed Infinity Agent Static Shiv, it is not Misfits that have control around the Baron area. It is not Misfits that have the push in mid lane. It is not Misfits that are able to hold the 1v1 down bot. This is still all within the control of the Unicorns of Love, and that is because Exileh is always moving with Xerxe and Hylissang, setting up this vision together, looking to punish Misfits if they overstep.
But Misfits have been out of control for a while. Actually, Explosive Cast comes out, IgNar will flash. The Unicorns of Love have been in control of this game for a while, Vedius. We said, you know, Exileh can roam, he's got his first item, he's got 2 kills. They're not really doing a huge amount with it.
That's because it's not 25 minutes yet, Medic. The thing about the Unicorns is they always wait till that one point in the game where all of a sudden something clicks in their brain and they go, ah, the Unicorn doth charge. And that is when they furiously ride towards their enemies without fear in sight, without anything standing in their way. And even though you would expect Exileh to be playing on a side lane, playing that sneaky assassin, trying to kill the backline threat, he's probably going to group with his team and they're probably going to have a big 5v5. Because that's how Unicorns do it, Medic. That's how they are so well known, how they built such a massive fan base. And what I'm so excited for. And it's also what you can be excited for as a play-by-play caster.
I'm always excited for a team fight. Misfits might not be, though, because their team fighting across the course of the split has been less than par. They're looking to rectify that now as they jump onto Exileh. The hook from IgNar connects, but Misfits cannot go any further as the Assassin's Path will take Exileh away.
Now, the big thing there was because of the Duskblade proc that gave him the Oracles, that denied the vision the Misfits had in the brush, which meant the Misfits did not want to overcommit to that objective. That allowed Exileh to get away. Very, very sly there from Exileh. Bit of luck in his favor, but now that he's been forced back, Misfits are in prime position to siege onto this tier 1.
with the Rift Herald. That will go down incredibly quickly. Unicorns of Love trying to group around to defend perhaps a second Rift Herald push, but that is the first tower that Misfits have taken this game. And they take with it a 1,000 gold lead at the 23-minute mark, Vedius. Not quite 25 minutes in.
Good start right now for Misfits. They reclaim the gold lead. Towers even. Everything's still looking very even. Both AD carries scaling up. But now it's 2 items on Exileh. This is where he needs to be making stuff happen. Look, he's in a side lane. He hasn't caught Alphari out. Alphari, good recognition there that the enemy team has a Talon. So he will not lose his life.
It's better recognition than we've seen from Alphari across the course of the split. Quite often he's been caught out in the side lane. Quite often he hasn't been the top laner that everyone expected him to be coming into the EU LCS. Struggled against some of the higher caliber top laners we have here in Europe.
He has. He has equalized the 1v1 at a little bit more. In the side lane, Gnar will definitely have a bigger advantage. He has the opportunity to go for the Frozen Mallet, if he so chooses, to really keep Xerxe at permanent arm's length. But Misfits now, they seem to have reclaimed a little bit more control, thanks to the Rift Herald, thanks to the pick they found onto Exileh, thanks to all this river control they've gained with all the controls that they invested in. They seem to be the ones dictating the pace a little bit. But UOL, they're still finding answers every now and then. They're still keeping things as even as they can.
You can see how safe Alphari is playing in this bottom lane as well, standing by his tower in Gnar because he knows Exileh's around. Unicorns have put this Talon in a side lane now, Vedius. They've done what we wanted to see from them. Misfits were able to get top lane tower because of it. And they've managed to break a little bit of this line. Gnar caught out with the pillar. Xerxe misses the body slam, and Hylissang is going to continue on the chase. Has used the subjugate, and the Unicorns of Love will not be able to get the engage they like.
So Misfits able to disengage from what could have been a horrible setup for Gnar. But he did the classic bait and switch, where he looked like he was walking one way, and then he walked the other. And Xerxe, unfortunately for him, he'd had one too many. Therefore, he went straight into Misfits' team, and he was like, oh no, shouldn't have gone this way. And the disengaging, no fight ends up happening, Medic. I know you're a little disappointed, but it's coming. It's on its way.
I believe you, Vedius. I believe you.
Unicorns, it wouldn't be them.
No, wait, I don't believe you.
Wait, why not?
Because your predictions are awful.
No, they're not.
You predicted KT would win. They lost.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And now you're predicting we're not going to get a single team fight this game. It's going to be 5 games of just pure, beautiful macro play.
I didn't tweet about it.
Oh, okay,
therefore,
we're fine
it's
then.
likely to happen.
We're fine.
Yeah, we'll be fine. We'll be fine.
At some point, we will have a team fight. We are starting to see some items being picked up as well across the board. More lethality for Exileh. He's got himself another serrated Dirk on top of the Duskblade and the Yumus. 2 items on Samux and 3 items on Hans Sama. You said they wanted the 2-item spike. They are hitting a 3-item spike now.
Yes, now this is a great time for Misfits to be the ones to try and force a fight. Unicorns of Love have not been doing a huge amount with the Talon. They haven't been able to find any side lane picks. They've moved him off to a side lane, but Alphari has been respecting him a huge amount, knowing that he doesn't himself have a lot of armor. Very good awareness from Misfits during the early game, and now this could be the fight they're looking for.
Hylissang hooked into the midst of the Misfits. Maxlore jumps forward, let's bounce, he says, and PowerOfEvil gets his first kill. Maxlore survives. Exileh is a long way away, but he might try and join the fray.
Now he's forced to group up with his team. I feel like he should have just kept pushing, but he was paranoid about Misfits going towards the Baron. Now he's in enemy territory. They know his whereabouts. He's going to be forced back down to bottom. Alphari can match him, though, because he has the TP, and Misfits, they find themselves another pick.
Xerxe did actually use the equalizer there as well. He used it on a bush. There was no one in it, which is a big ultimate to have down, especially with a team that can take Baron so quickly if the Misfits decide to go on the aggressive.
I actually love this adaptive helm, too, from Maxlore. I think it works very nicely against the equalizer, which is going to be a big team fight point. Now, we do see Maxlore here. Just wanted to contest the vision against the Unicorns of Love. Exileh died 1v1. We'll get to that in a second, because first we've got to cover this vision. Now, bear in mind, Maxlore used his Q into Hylissang's ward that he just put down. Hylissang actually ended up killing himself trying to get vision. Bit of a
Vision
misplay.
takes lives.
Yeah, vision does take lives. Now, all we're doing is we're waiting for the replay of the Alphari 1v1, because I'm a little confused as to how a no-armor Gnar ended up successfully killing a Talon with Ignite and 2 lethality items. 2.5, even. So that's going to be a fun replay to break down.
That it is. And at the start of, well, in the middle portion of this game, we said Exileh was playing well. You know, he got a couple of kills. It looks like it's just a chase down, Vedius.
So he used mini malform to just play him at arm's length rather than run away. Exileh decided to hard commit to the 1 versus 1, and he lost. He could have just ran, he could have disengaged, he had the jump, he thought he had more damage than he actually did.
It's the power of 2 items on that Gnar. As soon as you get the frozen mallet and the black cleaver, it's incredibly effective. Xerxe does have the equalizer backup. Alphari's looking for the chase, about to go mega, dodging the harpoons, jumps in, has the Gnar into the wall up, into the building, doesn't connect because the minions got in the way. The equalizer comes out, and now Alphari might need to be a little bit more careful, but he doesn't care. A solo kill for Alphari.
Has Flash available, has Zhonya's available, doesn't use either one of them. And the Unicorns of Love, that was just a massive misplay from Xerxe. He's super overextended. The rest of his team aren't in a position to try and capitalize on any objective. UOL are now going to lose all control around the river from Misfits. And this is why it became very difficult to put Xerxe at the top of top laners in the European LCS, because he does this sometimes. He makes these random plays where he does just randomly dart in a side lane, and we were criticizing Alphari, but so far, he's been able to get 2 solo kills, punishing the mistakes from the Unicorns of Love, both in mid and in top. He's now going to get a tower back in favor of Misfits, and they're going to extend that gold lead even more. Misfits looking fantastic in game 1.
29-minute mark and a 4,000 gold lead for Misfits. They've slowly accelerated this away, and a problem that they have had throughout the split is not being able to capitalize on having an early lead, not being able to actually play and make proactive plays as well, Vedius. We've seen a little bit more from them in this game, but I still want to see them actually forcing fights, actually getting good vision control. I
very much agree with you, Medic. I think you make a very, very valid point, because this is the best time right now for Misfits to force a fight. They have a 3-item AD carry, they have a 3-item Cassiopeia, they have a level 17 Alphari, who now has completed his plate. Everything looking great for Misfits. Now they just do what they've always done, which is use Baron to force a fight or try and find a pick onto Hylissang.
Hylissang puts down the frozen domain, trying to get away from PoE, the subjugate, the noxious blast, the exhaust as well. Hilly actually might escape. Does manage to get away, but he had to burn a lot to escape from PowerOfEvil.
PowerOfEvil used his flash, used his ulti, all to try and get that kill rather than just force Hylissang back. Remember what you can gain from just forcing a player back, and that is priority on the Baron. Misfits are going to start it off. Maxlore, he's taking a lot of damage, so rather than use it as a bait, they're just going to disengage.
Xerxe was on his way up as well. Alphari didn't have the opportunity to fully push out that bottom lane.
Now what Misfits should do is push up mid, push up bot. They have top slowly pushing in their favor after PowerOfEvil goes and clears it out. They've already got deep vision in the top side. Misfits are perfectly set up for the Baron. They don't even need to hard commit to it. They just use it as a bait. There are so many flanking wards for Alphari to TP to. He's almost got the Mega Gnar. You could not ask for a better setup, Medic. We're going to have a fight. It has to happen now.
Gone and cursed it again.
It's guaranteed.
Please stop saying it. Maxlore wants to try and prove you right as he gets the knockback. Xerxe belly pops him away. Alphari's going to jump into the fight. Xerxe stunned up with the wallop, but here comes the equalizer. That's superbly placed. Exile's up towards the backside of the fight as he tries to collapse onto Maxlore. Misfits having to retreat away from the Unicorns of Love, but the wallop into the Gnar, into Hylissang joining the fight. IgNar's in the front line. He needs to get the head out of there because Unicorns of Love get a fight in the mid lane, and this is exactly what they want to see. They actually win out the fight 5,000 gold behind.
Unbelievable. Unicorns of Love somehow find a successful team fight against Misfit. They now have priority over the river. Xerxe can go back to base and TP back in, and Misfits, they're too paranoid to give away this control.
How did this happen, Vedius?
I don't know. I need the replay.
We'll look at the replay. Might be interesting to note that Hylissang has gone for the Ardent Sensor. You do have 3 items on Samux. As we come into the replay, which I'm sure is coming up very soon, we will see exactly what happened. Are they going to rush this?
I think they're just going to rush this. This is a risk. Remember, Xerxe, he has his TP. He has the vision from the barrel, but he's got no wards left.
Does have a flash, does have the smite, does have Exile on the flank. Gets hooked in. That's going to be...
He's still alive.
He's still alive. Has to flash out, though. IgNar's so low. 2 kills already in the pit, and the Unicorns of Love are going to clean up. Misfits get the Baron, but they get no one out. Alphari trying to jump away. Samux has the red buff slow. The Gnar knocks him back. Misfits and Samux actually killing people on the back line all by himself. And Maxlore survived as well. Samux should be able to get away to the top side. He lifesteals, but the equalizer comes out. Hylissang puts down the wall. Samux says thank you very much. The knockback. Maxlore joins the fight once again. Xerxe's on his way. Misfits are just trying to fight this one out. The TP as well. They want this. They want a grand team fight, Vedius. Your predictions are coming true. The root, the knockback, the kill. finals, the Misfits, as they clean up after the Baron.
Summer played that beautifully. Life stealing off the jungle creeps, positioning just out of range of the real threats of unicorns in Vizicsacsi and Xerxe, and they get a tower to knock it all off. Misfits. Oh, that Baron was risky. There was a huge element of it being stolen away. They drag Xerxe in. They think that if they can just one-shot him here, then there's no threat. They can rush it down. Not a big risk. But look at Exileh. Comes in, starts getting a bunch of kills. Great knockback from Summer so that he still survives. And the jungler and the mid laner all get knocked out. Samux flashes in, or he doesn't even need to flash in. He goes in, he's able to get a kill, and then you just see Summer cleaning up. He realizes, I can't go towards the rumble. I gotta jump out and take my bets against the Talon. He's able to get the crit, get the kill, and just look at all the lifesteal. He's like, give me your life. So he drains it from the jungle creeps, chains it from the minions, and now he's like, oh, I've got my jungler here, I've got Alphari. Here's where the two UOL members kiss, and then it's just reset for Summer. He gets the kills, and Misfits, they walk away happy chappies.
Maxlore surviving in the pit with the passive as well meant that he could rejoin the fight. Misfits with the proactive plays and a 7-0-1 Tristana. We wanted a secondary carry. We wanted someone to step up. Summer says, I'm your man today.
Oh, he really has been. You have to give some of the credit to IgNar too. He landed some phenomenal hooks down in that 2 versus 2 matchup. And while Summer is reaping the benefits, IgNar has been a core part of why that has been able to happen. So now Misfits with the Baron, with the gold lead, with the kill lead, with everything, are looking poised to take game 1 in this series. Let's see if Unicorns can find a way back, because Exileh still has a lot of one-shot potential. He still has a lot of threat. There are not a huge number of options to keep Summer alive other than his own self-peel. So one bad positioning, one good barrel from Xerxe could turn a fight in the favor of the Unicorns.
A gargantuan gold lead that they do hold as well, Vedius. 9,000 gold ahead. That's going to extend even more as Alphari looks for this turret. Unicorns of Love were unable to capitalize on having a big mid laner in the mid game, and the Misfits have got their scaling online. They've got a Cassiopeia with 300 CS, and they've got a 7-kill Summer. They're looking for this mid lane tower. The hook connects onto Hylissang. His pillar actually locking him out from getting back into base. Maxlore gets knocked in, but Summer goes legendary. Exileh trying to get onto the Trist. Can he take him out? No, he can't. Knocked up, taken down. Double kill. Summer, and the Misfits are going to play clean up crew.
He's going
through
for the
base.
penta.
He gets the triple, he gets the quadra. Give us a penta, Summer to start us off. The EU LCS quarterfinals start off with a pentakill.
Summer, my word, you have certainly stepped up in game 1 of this series, getting yourself a pentakill, and we talk about momentum. What better way to build it than this game 1 from Misfits?
A devastating performance by Misfits and a commanding victory for them as they go 1-0 up over the Unicorns of Love.
The Analyst predicted 5 games. Ches has predicted 3-1 for Misfits. So many of the things that we wanted to see develop for Misfits came to fruition. We saw better synergy, better teamwork between Maxlore and IgNar. They were moving together, better investment in vision. We saw Summer stepping up thanks to a lot of great hooks from IgNar, but then Summer became that big carry. Alphari, yes, he fell behind during the early laning phase. Yes, he struggled, but he brought it back. He got 2 solo kills. And then the whole team,
die in lane,
he did not die in lane. He showed a lot of respect towards Exileh when he knew he had no armor. And we talked about how PowerOfEvil has been one of the shining stars, one of the honorable mentions for candidate for potentially making him as an MVP because of what he's done for the Misfits team. And he wasn't even really mentioned at all in this game. We didn't need to talk about it. There was no need to because the rest of the team was stepping up. And Misfits looking very commanding in game 1.
3 players on the Misfits went unkilled throughout that game. It was just a dominant performance by them, and you can see the Unicorns of Love debating backstage exactly what went wrong. I think you do have to cast a few eyes towards Hylissang on that Trundle. He really struggled to make an impact. Every time it seemed like the hooks were connecting onto him, and he ended up going 0-6-4 across the course of the game.
Yeah, I mean, we have to set expectations, right? That coming into this series, a lot of people were unsure as to how the series would play out. but a couple of underperformances in Samux and Hylissang. I'm hoping they step things up coming into game 2.
Now, Misfits Gaming struck first against the Unicorns of Love. Let's head over to the analyst desk to break down the action.
Yeah, thank you very much, Medic. A couple of questions were answered. We asked about, is there any other carry on Misfits besides PowerOfEvil? And there definitely was in this game. I just want to start by calling out Hansama and IgNar. Hansama, of course, got a penta kill and gets all the praise, but we're going to take a look at a couple of replays from bottom lane. Jesses, some exceptional Blitzcrank play.
I mean, this play is just super interesting. I mean, I think this is just one part of Hylissang and Unicorn's bot lane playing really poorly. And I think Hylissang, I mean, I rewatched the early lane phase and they were playing the matchup really, really bad. I think they could have contested the lane much more and they could have had much more pressure in the 2v2 and enemy Sac shouldn't have been able to bully their Gragas, and it was overall just really weird and not...
Seems like anti-Unicorn, because usually we say, you know, they play a bit too forward and they play with a bit of lack of respect. Was there too much respect in here?
I mean, the replay, the first replay we just saw here was them literally just running forward. Hylissang actually just going for a trade he didn't need it to.
So both.
They do still play forward. I think they just made some misplays. Like, Jesse, when you play Trundle support, like, what is your goal in the early laning phase?
I mean, you just want to scale, really. But when you're... I mean, it really depends on the matchup, right? But in this kind of matchup, it's super important that you get the early push in the 2v2 specifically, and especially when you have a Gragas versus Sac, it's just even more important that the enemy Sac is not forcing your Gragas flash level 3. And I mean, I think the specific clip that we showed was, it was like Hylissang, and like at least Hylissang, it seemed to me like he was kind of nervous in the beginning, and then he was like playing really hesitant and playing really passive, and then it clicked in his mind. He was like, "Oh, I'm playing super passive and super wrong. Maybe I should start playing aggressive." And he just doesn't think about anything. He just goes ham, you know, and just dies.
That's what Hylissang is known to do sometimes. So bottom lane going good for the Misfits. Caps, we were also looking at the middle lane, Cassiopeia, and then Exileh decided to play Talon against it. It is a pick that he likes a lot, but talk us through that matchup. Who has the advantage early? How is it supposed to go, and how does it scale later into the game?
So I think early PowerOfEvil had the advantage, but then around like level 5 or something, there was one time where, it's actually after this. There's a time after this where he forces Exileh to base. PowerOfEvil actually stays with very low mana, and it ends up. Look, you see Exileh here. No, PowerOfEvil has very low mana, and they end up getting a kill here. I mean, obviously it's also because of how top lane was. But I think a lot of waves, or PowerOfEvil gave up a lot of waves of pressure because he didn't get a reset off while he just forced Exileh back, so he should have a free recall. But instead he's staying, and he overstays without mana, and they end up having no pressure. But other than that, I don't think there was that much impact in the early game from mid lane. It was more the Hansama show. Yeah,
it was the Hansama show and the Alphari show, but I just wanted to mention that we talked a lot about, is PowerOfEvil the only carry, and then when a game goes like this, PowerOfEvil isn't getting a huge advantage, you start to think, oh, what are the options for Misfits? Because at that point, it wasn't apparent yet that Alphari was going to carry or that Hansama was going to carry, because we were watching and you guys were saying, you know, Unicorns of Love are still going to take this. Unicorns of Love are still going to take this. That's true, right?
I know. I don't think we said they were going to take it straight away. I think we all agreed that Misfits' late game team fighting looked much better in terms of the compositions. So don't want to blame them too much for playing a little bit slower in the early to mid game, because they actually had really good scaling. And I think especially the Talon was kind of lacking a place to be during the later stages. So it never felt like Unicorns were going to run away with it, because it was actually a very slow game. It was a lot about who gets top lane push into river control or mid lane push into river control, and then kind of trade a little bit back and forth. But as long as Misfits never really took a bad fight, they were actually just going to outscale. And that's where Alphari, once he got a few items on the Gnar, started literally first killing Exileh, then he kills Vizicsacsi right after. And
yeah, they were like, okay, Exileh's like, okay, I'll go bottom, but...
So we were trying to discuss why Exileh would be bot lane right here, and obviously one of the things was Alphari a lot of magic resistance and no armor. So maybe Exileh felt confident he could actually kill him 1v1, because otherwise putting him bot lane when he has no TP and Baron is alive and there's a top lane tower you can go for was kind of odd. When he then dies 1v1 and Alphari then gets a kill on Xayah after, because now outscales the Rumble, it's kind of doomed for Unicorns here because they can't actually play side lane.
No, it was really frustrating, and in that position as the Unicorns of Love, Jesses, it became a lot more difficult, right? Because you don't know who to send to that lane. Alphari can 1v1 everyone, and they could not also not really pick up a fight. So is that where you thought, okay, this is where Misfits have now taken over the game?
I think, I mean, to me, it seemed a bit like they felt pressure to do something. And instead of playing the map correctly, like they were in the mid game a bit, like playing vision properly in the top side, they suddenly came to a point where they realized, can we even take this mid tower? And can we even like crack open their base? Because obviously they had the bot tower, but they felt like they couldn't really maybe translate it as well. And maybe they, yeah, like I said, they felt pressure to do something and really randomly just sent Exileh to bot and yeah.
He died.
So as often happens in games like this, we get a not so clean Baron call in the end. Let's take a look at our final replay, which also broke the game in the end in favor of Misfits. And Caps, run us through the decision making here. Misfits, of course, start from a risky position, I would say.
I mean, so the thing is, when you have Cassiopeia, you do Nash really fast. And I think someone was recalling, maybe Rumble was recalling before they pulled the Nash. But the problem is just that he has TP, and they ended up in a very sticky situation where they are running into the Baron pit against Rumble plus Talon. And I mean, obviously, I mean, it ended up going well for them, but I think this is more because of the Rumble maybe missing, and Talon might as well have killed Tristana, and it could have gone, like, I think even Gnar got the Nash, so it could have been 5-0 for Unicorns and Nash, and the game could have been over right here.
So what would you have liked to see from Misfits instead before starting Baron? Mid lane push, vision, anything?
I mean, there was 2 times before this where I was like, why are they not pulling Nash right now? Because I'm not sure, I don't exactly remember the 2 times, but I think someone was recalling who was in the Rumble with TP, because they have a really good Nash. They have the Cassiopeia who can one-shot Nash. They have the Miasma, which makes it unable, like makes Gragas unable to go into the pit. The only problem is that they pull it while Talon is like in a flank position and Rumble is TPing behind them, and it's kind of suicide. Yeah. It didn't end up suiciding, but yeah.
No, it wasn't in the end. But I feel like we're none the wiser about the outcome of this best of 5 after this game. Even though Misfits is now a game up, you all have Misfits winning at least 1 game. So are we any the wiser, or are you still saying, well, it seems like a 50-50 for these teams?
I think Misfits picking ban phase was really good. I think Unicorns of Love, if they want to play the traditional style, they need to draft a better late game team fight, which means probably not the Talon in this case here. I don't know. This can still swing back and forth, but I think Misfits looked the best in this game.
So no one's wrong in their predictions, but Jesse right now is the most correct for now.
Technically most correct for now, yes.
3-1 for Misfits. So we'll see what happens. Misfits Gaming, they started with a win. Let's see if they can build on their lead when we return.